Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you know when live we go. Dear students, RAU'S IAS Prelims Test Series 2021 is a complete testing and revision course for the upcoming prelims examination. The program will help you prepare for UPSC prelims through a step-up approach. It is a meticulously designed study plan to organize your preparation and keep you on track towards covering the prelims GS and CSAT syllabus extensively from NCERT to the advanced level. The goal of our Prelims Test Series 2021 program is to exhaustively cover all standard sources of study material, including NCERT, with a study plan to test you at par with UPSC level of questions, thereby improving your chances of clearing the prelims examination. To give multiple revision of the entire syllabus from the perspective of civil service prelims pattern. The test series program will also give you the final revision of all topics and themes before the examination through QIP videos and prelims compass notes. The QIP videos or Quality Improvement Program videos are for speedy revision of all important topics for the upcoming prelims examination. QIP videos are kind of crash course for the prelims examination. And prelims compass are 8 subject-wise prelims compilation of all static and current affair topics important for the upcoming prelims. RAU'S IAS Prelims Test Series 2021 will include topics test, testing the concept of candidate. It will include thematic test on both the concept and the current affair of that particular theme. It will also include current affair tests covering the monthly current affairs. And there will be full-length test before the final exam to simulate you for the D-Day. There is a link in the description of this video. You can click on the link for registration and to also check out the demo QIP videos. In today's DNS, we shall discuss today's newspaper, The Hindu, Delhi edition dated 30th December 2020. We will take up important articles from the perspective of civil service examination and discuss them as per the demand of the exam. The articles that we will take up for discussion has been tabulated in front of you, and the time stamping for the same has been given in the description section. This news article is from page number 4. Explore utilization of fly ash in cement plants, NGT. The National Green Tribunal has directed a Faridabad-based thermal power plant to explore utilization of fly ash in the cement plants. And it also has directed the Central Pollution Control Board to monitor whether the covering of ash dumps meet scientific environmental norms. There are 2 aspects here. One is utilization of fly ash, for which the Ministry of Environment also has norms laid down. And the scientific filling of the fly ash pond or the degraded land is extremely important because fly ash has toxic substance in it. It is dangerous for environment. To understand the relevance and importance of this topic, and also to understand what has to be covered in this topic, let us see this question of UPSC asked in the prelims examination of 2015. The question was like this: with reference to fly ash produced in the power plants using coal as fuel, which of the following statements are correct? Fly ash can be used in the production of bricks for building construction. Fly ash can be used as a replacement for some of the Portland cement contents of concrete, and fly ash is made up of silicon dioxide and calcium oxide only and does not contain any toxic elements. Statement like this really makes some of the questions of prelims very easy to be solved. Your mind will not accept that something like ash will not have any toxic element and it will be made up of only 2 chemicals, silicon dioxide and calcium oxide. Statement 3 is obviously false. First 2 statements are correct. The answer was option A. This question covered 2 dimensions of the topic: the composition of fly ash and its uses. And this question was asked because of notification given by Ministry of Environment then regarding utilization of fly ash. The question of utilization of fly ash and the environmental hazard that it entails is very relevant. See, UPSC asked this question in 2013. Which of the following is a characteristic or characteristics of Indian coal? And you know that Indian coal has high ash content. The other two characteristics was low sulfur content and low ash fusion temperature. Actually, the fusion temperature is very high, around 1500 degrees Celsius. The third characteristic is incorrect. The answer was option A, 1 and 2. But the point I'm trying to bring your attention to is that Indian coal has high ash content. So naturally, fly ash that will come out of the thermal power plant using coal as fuel will also be high. So it's a big issue for India as a nation. See, when coal is added in the furnace or the boiler of the thermal power plant, it acts as fuel, it burns out, gives out chemicals. The heavier chemicals, the heavier part of the burnt up byproduct settles down. That is called as bottom ash. But the finer ones, they come out along with the gases coming out from the furnace. Ultimately, the exhaust or the flue gas, they come out of the chimney, but the finer ash, the burnt out byproduct, they are stopped using an electric precipitator at a stage before the chimney, and they are collected in hoops. They are called as fly ash. As the name suggests, they fly. They could fly tens of hundreds of kilometers with the air. The point to understand is they are particulate matters of very fine nature. So they are the source of pollution of particulate matter 2.5. They are dangerous. They can penetrate into the lungs, they can penetrate into the soil, deep into the water bodies. Secondly, what you need to know is the composition of fly ash. It has silicon dioxide, it has aluminum dioxide, and also calcium oxide. The composition of silicon, aluminum, and calcium is quite similar to that of cement. Cement although have other chemicals like iron as well, but this composition fits well with the composition of cement. Secondly, you would understand from the chemicals like silicon dioxide, aluminum oxide, and calcium oxide that it will be hydraulic in nature, meaning it will absorb water. Thirdly, from the composition, you will also understand that it has metal oxides, aluminum oxide and calcium oxide. And from class 10th chemistry, you might know that metal oxides are basic in nature. These four things about fly ash, that it is source of particulate matter 2.5, it is cementitious, meaning it has composition similar to cement, it will have properties similar to that of cement, it can be used in concrete. It is hydraulic in nature, it absorbs water, and it is basic in nature. You can figure out the utility of fly ash. Apart from the composition of these major minerals coming basically from coal, it will obviously also carry the toxicity of coal. It will have toxicity of heavy metals like arsenic, cobalt, lead, manganese, mercury. It will also have dioxins, which are extremely poisonous. When you club these two things, that they are very fine in nature and it has toxicity of heavy metals and dioxins, you will understand the environmental hazard that it will cause. First of all, because of being very fine in nature, they become very dangerous. They can penetrate deep inside the alveoli of our lungs and also pollute the soil. Secondly, it flies in the atmosphere because of wind and the air current. So it is not restricted to the place of origin. It has toxicity of heavy metals that can be leached deep inside the soil. And because of this, it can pose risk to the entire ecosystem. It is well documented that the ash from the coal-powered plants in the region has destroyed the ecosystem of Rann of Kutch. The mangroves have been destroyed, there has been destruction in the crop yield of the region, and the underground water has got polluted. But despite all the hazard it has, all the harm that it causes, all the risk that it puts us to, we cannot stop the production of fly ash. For the simple reason that thermal power plants are coal-fired in India largely, and they cannot be shut down. So it is important that fly ash be managed. It is true that Indian coal has high ash content, so it becomes more important that fly ash is managed because their production cannot be stopped. Thermal power plants are important for development of our country. We need to have inclusive growth. Do you know India's per capita GDP is just $1965? This is too low. World's average is around 10,000. India's HDI value is just 0.64. India again has slipped in the HDI index this year. Per capita energy consumption also in India is just 1/5 of global average. Around 300 million people do not have access to electricity. So developmental activities in general and functioning of thermal power plant in particular cannot be stopped. But at the same time, climate change is aggravating poverty, inequality, increasing more health issues, frequency and intensity of disaster is increasing, and the brunt is borne by the poor. So, there is a need of management and its sustainable use. In fly ash management, it's important that care is taken at every stage. Stage 1 is before being used as fuel. Coal must be washed at the appropriate stage before it is brought to the power plant so that some of the ashes are already washed out. While it is being used as a fuel, it's important that the thermal power plant are used with higher efficiency. That in itself will decrease the requirement of coal and production of ash. Thirdly, after coal has been used as fuel and fly ash has been created, it is important to have 100% utilization. For 100% utilization, we have to find the appropriate uses of fly ash. One of the most important and beneficial use of fly ash is mixing it up with Portland cement. The Indian fly ash, because of the variety of Indian coal, is of calcareous variety, meaning it can be used as a mixture in cement. To say technically, it is pozzolantic in nature. Pozzolantic substances are those which in itself are not cementitious, meaning it cannot be used as cement, it cannot be used as the base material in concrete, but when it reacts with calcium hydroxide, it can be used as a cementitious material. But we have discussed earlier that fly ash of Indian variety is already hydraulic, meaning it absorbs water, and then when it is dried, when it starts setting, it will have a self-cementing property. The only thing is the self-cementing property of fly ash is such that it takes time to dry up. But once it gets dried, it has a higher compressing strength than pure cement. That is why it can either be used as a mixture or replacement for the Portland cement. The second property of fly ash is that it is basic in nature. It is alkaline. It is also hydraulic, meaning it absorbs water and then sets down. So because of these properties, it can be used to transform the sewage sludge, which is mostly acidic, into organic fertilizer or biofuel. It can also be used to treat acidic soils. It can be used as a soil conditioner. It can also be used for soil stabilization of soft soils because it is hydraulic in nature. Because it is hydraulic, it has self-cementing property. When it dries up, it has more compressing strength than cement. Because of these properties, it can also be used in making bricks. It can be used in road construction. It can be used to give embankment or structural strength to any structure. It can also be used as landfills. But it is used as landfills only in the dry form because it has toxic heavy metals. In the wet form, leaching of soil and pollution of underground water will happen. Regarding utilization of fly ash, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change also has a setup norm, according to which it is mandatory for the power plants to give fly ash free of cost to any user who demands it, provided the user is within 300 kilometer radius. This directive was given to increase the utilization of fly ash. Fly ash utilization was very low. In 2014, it was 57.63%. Back in 1999, it was just around 13.5%. It is also mandatory for cement industries within the radius of 300 kilometers of any coal or lignite-based thermal power plant to use fly ash for manufacture of cement, as per the standard that will be given by Bureau of Indian Standards. And the cost that will incur in transporting the fly ash from one industry to another, that will be borne out collectively. Similarly, if roads are being constructed within 300 km from the coal or lignite-based thermal power plant, then fly ash has to be used mandatorily as per the specification given by Indian Road Congress. And if bricks construction activities are happening within 500 km radius from the thermal power plant, then fly ash has to be mandatorily used. Government also encourages the use of fly ash in blocks, in tiles, in wall panels, and in other construction material. Recently, to increase its utilization and bring the utilization of fly ash to 100%, GST rates has been reduced to 5%. To increase the utilization to 100%, government also has come up with a web portal called as Ash Track that will basically connect the suppliers of fly ash and the users. These measures will hopefully take us towards management of fly ash and sustainable development. Coming back to the question that we began with, fly ash can be used in the production of bricks for building construction. Obviously, fly ash is hydraulic in nature. When it sets, it becomes hard. It also has cementitious property. It can very well be used in the construction industry. Fly ash can be used as a replacement. Fly ash can also be used as a replacement for some of the Portland cement content of concrete. Obviously, fly ash is cementitious in nature. We have seen that. So first two options are obviously correct. The third one is incorrect. This article is from page number 7, The Broken Bonds of Democracy. The author has used this title satirically to comment on the state of electoral bonds. An activist from Maharashtra filed RTI application to SBI, but the Public Information Officer of SBI denied the information regarding electoral bond. The PIO used Section 8(1)(e) of the RTI Act to deny the information. This was appealed at the CIC, Central Information Commission, and Central Information Commission has given the same reason for denying the information yet again. Under Section 8(1)(e) of the RTI Act, information can be barred from disclosure on two grounds. First, if the information is held in the fiduciary capacity, meaning if the information is held concerning the financial relation. Suppose I want to know the balance in your bank account. I can't go and file an RTI for that. Or if I want to know how much interest you are paying for your housing loan or your car loan. If the information is held by anyone, any institution in the fiduciary capacity, then that information can be barred from public disclosure. Or if the information does not have any public interest involved, then also the information can be barred. And using both these grounds available under Section 8(1)(e) of RTI Act, the information was not given regarding the electoral bond to the activist. The author in this article present an alternative viewpoint, saying that use of Section 8(1)(e) is not appropriate, rather other sections of the Act can be used, and not giving information under the shield of Section 8(1)(e) is illegal, is unconstitutional. The author is of the opinion that Section 8 has been used in a very narrow sense by the PIO. The author highlights that there is Section 8(2) as well. And according to this section, the public authority can give access to information if public interest in the disclosure outweighs harm to the protected interest. But then it is on the discretion of the concerned public authority whether to go with Section 8(1)(e) or Section 8(2). If public interest outweighs the harm to the protected interest, then information can be released. And then the author gives argument that there is public interest in disclosing the information regarding electoral bond. Let's see how and why. The author takes the help of Supreme Court judgment in People's Union for Civil Liberties versus Union of India 2003, in which the Supreme Court stated that freedom of speech and expression also contains the fundamental right of a voter to secure information about the candidates who are contesting in the election. Without relevant information, right to vote cannot be exercised. Additionally, right to vote is not just a legal right. When citizens go for voting, citizens also choose the future of the nation. The candidates who win the election, they become guardian of not only polity, but also of economy, also of environment, also of social fabric. Suppose, for example, a company called JBS. It is accused of destroying the Amazon forest. And if a political party or candidate is being funded by JBS, then the citizens would not like to vote for that party or candidate. Whether the candidate or party is getting funding from JBS or not is a crucial piece of information in that scenario. Additionally, not giving out information regarding electoral bond strengthens the corrupt nexus in the nation. This has to be seen especially in the context of amended FCRA Act, which provides that political parties can accept donation from foreign companies as well, which was previously barred. And there is no limit to the donation given by companies to political parties, previously which was 7.5% of the profit. So grounds are being laid for corrupt nexus, and when foreign companies can also generously give to political parties, there is a threat of interference in domestic politics by foreign powers. The author says that on these grounds, it is in public interest that the information is given regarding electoral bonds. So Section 8.2 must be used rather than Section 8.1e when it comes to divulging information regarding electoral bonds. Now what will you go with? There's a petition pending in the Supreme Court regarding the correct interpretation of the RTI Act and regarding the legality and constitutionality of electoral bonds. Supreme Court, the final interpreter of Constitution and having the final say on any law of the land, will decide on the case, and that must be done sooner because the author says an unsettled law is as dangerous as a bad law. For the prelims examination, there are certain pointers regarding electoral bonds that you must be aware of. First of all, it's a bearer instrument. Bearer instrument meaning the physical identity of the bearer, the purchaser, is not recorded, and the financial instrument is given to the bearer in the physical form. It is also a promissory note, having a promise from one party to another party to give a fixed set of money within a fixed set of date. And it is interest free. Electoral bonds are issued in multiples of rupees 1,000, 10,000, 1 lakh, 10 lakh and 1 crore. There is no upper limit. But the bonds are issued only from the specified branches of SBI. This bearer instrument can be bought from the specified branches of SBI only on due fulfillment of all the process of KYC. So the identity of the purchaser will be recorded, but it will not be reported. The instrument will not carry any name of the payee. The electoral bond will have a life of only 15 days. Within this 15 days, the bearer instrument and the promissory note must exchange hand, must go from payee to political party, and the political party will redeem the sum of money from this bearer instrument. All political parties are not eligible for electoral bond, only those who have secured not less than 1% of votes in the last general election to Lok Sabha or Legislative Assembly. The political parties will have to disclose the amount of donations to the Election Commission. And that's how we know what percentage of money from the electoral bond has gone to which political party. But the catch here is, Election Commission cannot inquire into the origin of money because we have SBI sitting in the middle. That's all you need to know concerning electoral bond. This article from page number 7, the tragedy of conservation. Tragedy for the tribal population living in the forest areas who are considered as hurdle in forest conservation. The author highlights that ever since 39 areas covering national park, wildlife sanctuaries and reserve forest in the Western Ghat were declared World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 2012, Ministry of Environment and Forest has began identifying more potential heritage sites. And this has created unrest among the indigenous people living in the forest areas. There was question mark on their existence, the land that they have been inhabiting for decades, or rather centuries. The present state of affair of considering tribals as a hurdle in the forest conservation activities began to be established at the time of Britishers. Railway was introduced in India in the year 1853 from Mumbai to Thane. We all know that Britishers were facing difficulty in supply of timber, which was essential for the great expansion of the Great Indian Railway. So there was a need for control of forest resources and timber. To fulfill this need, they enacted a law, Indian Forests Act 1865, by the virtue of which British extended their colonial claim over forests of India. The idea was concretized in the Forest Act of 1878, which gave a virtual state monopoly over the forests and truncated the century-old traditional use right by the communities living in the forest area. The act established that the customary use of forest by the villagers was not a right but a privilege, which can be taken away if and when the government wants. Indian Forest Act 1927, which is used still today and which was the main forest conservation law for a very long time, had nothing to do with conservation. It declared forest as a state property with the monopoly of using timber, and it again sought to override the customary rights of tribal people living in the forest. The Forest Conservation Act 1980 did do something for forest conservation, but it did not adopt the practice of enthusiastically involving the tribal communities in the forest conservation. It did have certain provision like restricting the use of forest land for non-forest purpose, to prevent the clear felling of naturally grown trees, restricting the leasing of forest land to private individuals or other private authorities. It was only latter, when India was more democratized and the legacy of British rule started to fade away, the scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act 2006 was enacted. The purpose was to balance the right to environment with the right to life and livelihood. It recognized the right to life and livelihood of indigenous people, gave them habitat rights, gave them land use rights in the forest area. Previously in the prelims, UPSC has asked this question. One of the statement in the question was, Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change officially decides and declare habitat rights for primitive and vulnerable tribal group in any part of India. First of all, there is a habitat right for vulnerable and particularly vulnerable tribal groups. This habitat right comes from the Forest Right Act 2006 that we have just talked about. But Environment Ministry does not decide on the matter is decided locally by local administration. There is also a statement in the question, for the first time in India, Bagas have been given the habitat rights. They were given the habitat rights in 2016, the question came in 2018, and till then, very few tribal groups were given the habitat rights. So second thing you need to understand, although there is a provision of giving habitat rights to tribal community under the Forest Right Act 2006, but that is used very sparingly. There was another question on the same theme in 2019. One of the statements read like this. The Scheduled Tribe and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act 2006 allows ownership of minor forest produce to forest dwellers. This is the use right given to the tribal communities under the Forest Rights Act 2006. So we have reversed the scheme of things that the Britishers set by the Forest Act of 1878. They did not recognize the right of indigenous people, but they gave the use right as privilege. Now that is a legal right. But the point is, this provision of the law must be used more democratically, more magnanimously. The author is of the opinion that the forest conservation effort bereft of tribal communities serve no purpose. Rather, that is the root cause of conflict. The author gives reference of Global Environment Outlook report, which says that the protected areas globally has been expanding, but not much success has been made in forest conservation effort. So people living in the nature surrounding, they are integral to conservation. We have multiple exemplary examples of tribal communities involved in biodiversity conservation in India. You must have heard of Maldhari communities living in the Bunny Grassland Reserve area. They have been living in and around the Gir National Park, coping with the lions. And they have played extraordinary role in conserving and increasing the number of lions in the Gir National Park. Similarly, you must have heard of Bishnoi community. Bishnoi community has been involved in reverence and conservation of black bucks, even before the black buck was put in Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act 1972. You must have heard of the Bugun community of Arunachal Pradesh. They were given the India Biodiversity Conservation Award 2018. They were involved in the conservation of Bugun leochichla bird. The bird itself was named after the community. Now you should run horses in your mind and collect more such examples and mention that in the comment section for the benefit of all. This is a lead article from page number 6, The Global Angle to the Farmers' Protest. This article has appeared in the newspaper in the context of recent protest over the Farms Act. This article is highly critical of the Farms Act, wherein it highlights that apart from domestic firms, even the foreign agribusiness firms could exploit Indian farmers. Through the contract farming, the foreign agribusiness firms could force farmers to grow those crops which they need in their country. And once the crops are procured by these foreign firms from Indian farmers, the crops would be exported out of India. This could be a dangerous proposition on account of number of factors. For one, it will lead to diversion of land away from food crops to commercial crops, and thus it will affect India's food security. Two, it could expose Indian farmers to the exploitation of global MNCs. The international experience with companies like PepsiCo in contract farming has not been very encouraging. Three, it would weaken the procurement and distribution of food grains infrastructure and would lead to poor income support for the farmers. The author also talks about conspiracy by the developed countries to break the public procurement infrastructure of developing countries because they cannot grow tropical grains which are in high demand in their countries. So they want it to be imported from developed countries. They want to get into contract farming. And for them, the doors are getting opened. Additionally, the author has raised question on agriculture subsidy. The agricultural product of developed nations are highly subsidized. Because there are less number of farmers, it takes only less than 1% of total government expenditure. In India and other developing countries, government subsidy is a large portion of government expenditure. But since large population is involved in agriculture activity, the subsidy do not come anywhere near to what is given to the farmers of developed nation. The author expressly says that the developed country has orchestrated a conspiracy at WTO. We will not get into those, but what is important for you to know for the exam is agreement on agriculture under the WTO regime and the issues related with this. The issue surrounding agreement on agriculture and the larger issue in WTO was discussed in the DNS of 17 December 2020 by our illustrious Webber sir. So we will not do it again here. The relevant notes has been given in the PDF for your reference. With this, we have come to the end of the session. The answer to yesterday's question and today's question has been displayed on your screen. Also make sure that you do attempt the DNS quiz on the ELEARN platform. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Take care.